Hey guys, it's Hayden, and today I'm going to be discussing Module 2's discussion board. I will be citing the Teaching Strategies 11th edition textbook in this presentation multiple times, so when we get there, I'll make that known to you guys. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is grading. I will personally assign grades based on what a student's work reflects. Growing up, I didn't really understand how some teachers were able to get away with showing favoritism through grades. It happened a lot more than it should have. Me personally, I think a teacher should focus on the work rather than the person. That's the only right way to do it, in my opinion. If I were to teach any grade below third grade, I would probably not give out grades under a 60 unless the student did not complete their work at all. That's a different topic. And if you are continuously giving out Fs to your students at a young age, you could potentially make them feel as if they aren't smart or have no future. I think all students should be motivated, and I will use learning centers in my classroom to help my students better understand a specific topic. No student should be left behind, and I will try my best to minimize that from happening. All right, so next up we're going to be talking about progress. I believe that students should be aware of their progress and have access to check their performance throughout the school year. One way you can do this is by having parent-teacher conferences. As a teacher, I plan to create portfolios for each of my students, and in the textbook, it states that portfolios are a collection of students' works, which you can find on page 204. Inside the portfolio folder will be a collection of their work that I can share with their guardian. I will also make sure to keep track of student progress by creating a system that tracks their growth. If there is anything that a student needs to work on, I can either inform the parent or I can use learning centers in my classroom to focus on the topics my students are struggling with. Another idea for keeping track of progress would be including exit tickets into your classroom. This will tell you whether or not your students are grasping the information being presented to them. My students will use a hole punched folder. I used to do this when I was in elementary school. My teachers would have us create these. And in that folder, they are going to place their classwork and homework in there. They can take that folder home to review their work, and they can also share it with their guardians when they ask, "What are you doing in school?" When I become a teacher, I will take time to evaluate my students. I will continue to form my lesson plans around how my students learn best, which may mean I'll have to change my lesson plan multiple times. The textbook states that your decisions affect the intellectual and attitudinal development of your students, which can be found on page 16. I will monitor subject achievement by examining my students' work. That includes assignments, group work, exit tickets, etc. I will use rubrics to grade my students' work, which will help me to better understand their progress, and it'll ultimately help guide them through the assignment given to them. So I believe a student's effort should account for something when it comes to grading, but at the same time, their grades should still reflect their knowledge as a whole. If I see that a student has tried hard but maybe missed a few points, I'll just leave them a note at the bottom of the paper telling them that I appreciated their hard work. If multiple students struggled with the same question, we will cover it in class. This will help them to understand where they messed up and what to do next time. I will appeal to my students' intrinsic and extrinsic motivation in hopes that it will affect their efforts in class. And page 10 of the textbook states that student success reflects their teacher's effectiveness. Good and bad behavior will not influence my grading at all. A student is given the grade they deserve, and their behavior shouldn't change that. Instead, I will implement incentives into my classroom. If a student is following the classroom rules and keeping a positive behavior, they will be rewarded. If a student is behaving badly, I will go through the 5 stages of my classroom consequences. And page 332 of the textbook states that consequences should be organized in a hierarchy, which I highly agree with. So when it came to part 2 of this assignment, I chose question 1. I will be referencing the textbook in the first half of this slide. So I started by saying if a teacher witnesses an act of bullying, they should intervene in a way that is consistent, thoughtful, and skilled. This basically means that a teacher needs to stay calm and collected and make sure to alert their school's administrators, counselors, psychologists, and other teachers. All of this information can be found on page 344 of the Teaching Strategies textbook. In order to minimize bullying in my classroom, I will implement a no bullying policy and explain to my students the importance of following it. If one of my students are frequently bullying other children, I will have no choice but to contact their guardian. The big question is going to be, how can schools minimize bullying? It's important for schools to focus on eliminating bullying, and a way they can do this is by holding an anti-bullying campaign. They could have someone come in and speak about the negative effects of bullying, and they should do this in front of the whole school. The school can also start a school project. When I was in middle school, the teachers organized a kindness Instagram page. Students could send in anonymous DMs, and they were all like compliments to other students, and those would be posted. This was something me and many other students enjoyed, and I still like to look back and see all the compliments we gave each other.